Good morning, everybody. This is Robb Ryerse, and you are listening to the Common Good podcast. This is Monday, which means we're talking about politics and the news. And I'm here with Dan Deitrich, producer Dan, who is alongside today, while our fearless leader, Doug Padgett, is on a bike in traffic at the very south tip of Texas. And I know that because I got a text from my wife, who is on the We the People ride, which is a bike ride from San Diego, California to St. Augustine, Florida, highlighting the need for a common good border and immigration policy. And you can find out all about it at wethepeopleride.org. My wife is down there and is along on the ride, and she texted me this morning that a lot of traffic on the frontage roads of South Texas, and that's where they're at right now. And they've had some amazing experiences over the last few days. And we talked last week, Dan, quite a bit about your experiences. It's really fun, kind of living vicariously through my wife as she's having some really amazing experiences there too.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I've been getting videos because part of my job, I update and edit videos that Doug sends me, and it looks like they're having a really great time, meeting a lot of great people, great organizations.
I got this text very late last night. I'm in Mexico at a fancy restaurant in my bike shorts.
That's how it goes.
Yeah, so that came in about 10:30 last night. So it made me laugh. If you're watching along and or listening along and you're interested in jumping on a bike and being a part of the fun, you absolutely could do that. Go check out wethepeopleride.org. Dan, today we're going to talk about politics and the news and go through a bunch of stories and kind of talk about the political implications of them. And, it feels to me like we're going to go from, the sublime to the ridiculous in terms of these news stories. It is, it is unending craziness, isn't it? Does it feel like, when will the craziness end? Am I the only one feeling that way?
No, and I'm like, has it always been this crazy and I just wasn't paying attention? Or is it really just extra wild these days? I don't know.
Yeah. So that's what we're going to do today. And, we'd love to have you chime in the comments and give your thoughts on these news stories and the political implications of them and be a part of the conversation that we're having. First up, I think we all probably woke up this morning to the news that General Colin Powell passed away.
Yeah.
And it's probably more appropriate to call him Secretary Colin Powell because Secretary of State outranks General, even Chairman of the Joint Chiefs. But really a remarkable American story, Colin Powell. Son of immigrants from Jamaica who came to the United States, and he had a distinguished career in the United States military, rising to being Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Secretary of State, one of the most powerful and popular men of the last 40 years. He was someone who just seemed to be universally adored, right?
Yeah.
It seemed, he was a moderate Republican, someone that was trusted, it seemed, by everybody, and someone who simply had the respect of so many of his peers, and someone who, throughout, Washington, D.C. and politics is known as being this super divisive thing that will eat you up and spit you out and leave people broken. And it seemed like Colin Powell was someone who kind of consistently rose above that and won the respect of people, whether they agreed with him or not, or whether they were politically aligned with him or not. He seemed to be someone who just had universal respect.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, is everyone respected him across party lines. And I feel like that's something that's we're losing more and more people from the political space like that. It's just becoming so divisive now that these personalities that can reach across the aisle, the John McCain's, where you might disagree with a political stance, but he has integrity, and it's the same with Colin Powell.
Yeah, the elder statesman. He certainly seemed like he was kind of one of our elder statesmen. It's someone who, it seemed every 4 years it was, rumored, floated news stories about Colin Powell should run for president. Colin Powell should run for president. Seemed like he was constantly in that chatter, and constantly on that list of, well, who should be your vice presidential pick? Well, Colin Powell. And someone that was just always just assumed that like that would be a step, and it, for whatever reason, it never happened. I don't know if he was just not cut out for that, but
or had seen it up close and realized he didn't want to do that.
That's right.
What it does to people.
Wisdom is knowing not what jobs not to take. But I think it's important that we mention that there, even while we kind of praise Colin Powell, there is a bit of a complicated legacy, I think, with him. And I know I travel in pretty progressive circles, especially on places like Twitter, and the hashtag war criminal was trending for me, and I knew immediately what that was about. It was about Colin Powell. Here's someone whose legacy was really tarnished by what happened in Iraq, and that famous speech of him going to the United Nations and making the case that on the behalf of the Bush administration that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. And, as justification, I've got a little bit of a throat this morning, but as justification for invading Iraq, and in the aftermath of 9/11, Colin Powell was, a key part of that. Not just the brain trust that decided to do that, but one of the people who was making that case. And, there were many, many, many unnecessarily lost lives as a result of that decision. And he was, in many ways, the face of that for the Bush administration. And, so I think we've got to recognize that, like, here's a complicated legacy for Colin Powell, certainly someone who's like tremendously inspiring in so many ways. And yet, there's some decisions that were made that had real tragic results.
Yeah.
And, I think when you think about how high the stakes were, like, we're not talking like, oh, like he made some bad financial decisions, or, I don't like this is major. This is like thousands of lives lost as a result of this. And so I think it's important that we recognize that there's even while here's someone that, deserves a lot of credit and a lot of kudos on his passing. At the same time, there's something complicated here.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think post 9/11, there was such a fervor for like revenge and like projecting American strength, and I don't know, it gets complicated real fast. Like, did Colin Powell know we didn't actually have proof of the weapons of mass destruction? Was he just relying on faulty intelligence? It's a big mess, but either way, tens of thousands of lives were lost. Under the pretext that there was weapons and there weren't.
Right. Right. Now the other kind of part of the headline about Colin Powell passing away is that he passed away of complications from COVID-19. Um, and there's people saying, oh well, he was vaccinated, he was fully vaccinated. Here's this high profile death of someone who is vaccinated dying of COVID-19. And I think it's just really important to remind people of the basics. And the basics is that uh, the COVID-19 vaccine does not inoculate you from ever getting COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
You Even if you're vaccinated, you can get COVID-19. Uh, However, the symptoms are significantly um, lessened and reduced, and the likelihood of hospitalization is dramatically reduced if you're vaccinated, as is the likelihood that you will die of COVID-19. Unfortunately, that's it's not 100% thing. And Colin Powell had cancer. He had a type of cancer that caused him to be immunocompromised and very susceptible to infection and disease. And it's a sad thing. It's one of those things that, as a 84-year-old man, an elderly man that was immunocompromised in the midst of his fight with cancer, even the vaccine couldn't save him. And that's a sad thing. But this is not some kind of indication that the vaccine is ineffective.
If anything, it's an indication that the people around him should have been fully vaccinated and taken the steps to protect him because he was immunocompromised. We don't know, obviously, who transmitted it, but this is just a reminder that it's not just about you being protected, it's about you protecting others from this deadly virus.
Yeah, yeah. So rest in peace, Colin Powell. A heroic man who like every hero really has some complications with that.
Mm-hmm.
As we talk about, this is kind of a weird transition to make here, Dan. But even as we talk about the vaccine, we're at a point now where companies are really ramping up with the vaccine deadline, which I think President Biden had set. It was October 15th, right? It happened over the weekend. The vaccine deadline, where companies are required to have their employees vaccinated, or to have frequent weekly testing to show a negative test COVID vaccine, to keep workplaces healthy and safe. And there's a lot of people who are reacting badly to this unexpected. I say unexpectedly, tongue in cheek. After everything we've seen over the last couple of years, it's no surprise at all that there is some percentage of people who are going to pitch a fit that they have to be vaccinated. Dan, what are your thoughts about these vaccine mandates and what they're going to mean for the workforce?
We've talked about it before, but you can view it as a vaccine mandate, or you can view it as a testing mandate with a vaccine opt-out. So if you don't want to get the vaccine, just get tested every week. It seems like an easy solution to me, but I guess we're, almost 2 years into this, and literally, is it 1 billion people that have received the vaccine at this point?
Yeah.
We have the numbers to understand that this is a safe and effective vaccine, these main vaccines. And I get the whole you don't want the government telling you what to do thing, but the government wouldn't have to tell people what to do if we just did the right thing to protect our neighbors. And there's not the outcry about other vaccines that kids have to get to go to public schools. I mean, there's maybe small people that don't like that or whatever. But it's just weird to me that this is the hill that people are sometimes literally willing to die on.
Right. Right. It's yeah, you see these headlines that are doom and gloom and saying, thousands and thousands of workers at this company are going to be laid off, or thousands of people at this company, that company are going to be fired because they didn't get vaccinated. And there was all that fear about state troopers and police officers, and like there's been all of these stories.
Mm-hmm.
The Southwest pilots, for instance, and then when push comes to shove, um, I really wonder, how much of an impact this is really going to have. Like I really, I'm not so sure that the doom and gloom reporting is going to come to fruition of like this is actually what's taken place. My
Yeah.
guess is that this is going to be a flash in the pan, one more example of this ongoing division, and giving people the vocal opportunity to make a stink about it, and then people are going to go back to work.
Yeah.
Many of them getting the vaccine because they got to have jobs. Like, you got to have a job, and
And at this
and
point, most people know someone at least that's had the vaccine and they didn't
right,
turn magnetic. They didn't. So the
yes,
scare tactics are getting harder to uphold because so
right.
many people have received the vaccine and are doing great.
Yeah, yeah. I saw it referred to as the depopulation jab the other day, and it just made me laugh because, as you mentioned, 1 billion people have gotten this. That if you want to, depopulate, you could take if you took out 1 billion people, that wouldn't be too bad. In terms of overall number, I mean, that would be awful. But in terms of like, if that's your objective, and in terms of overall numbers, like come on, that's not what this is. The conspiracy theories are absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah,
Ugh.
and the people that are dying from COVID right now are 99% unvaccinated.
Mm-hmm.
I just, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Now, and this is kind of jumping ahead a little bit. I mean, the thing that is interesting that dovetails with this, while we have these people who are kind of putting their jobs in jeopardy over the vaccine, at the very same time, we have got a lot of people that are putting their jobs in jeopardy by going on strike. And
Yeah.
all over the country, strikes are happening in major corporations and businesses around the country, and everything from Hollywood to the cereal industry,
John
John
Deere.
Deere.
Yeah.
It's just like all over the country, workers are going out on strike and saying, "Listen, you know, you're not paying us enough, and it's ridiculous how much we have to pay in healthcare, and the hours we have to work, and the working conditions, and people are just sick and tired of really lousy working conditions, and they're
Yeah.
and they're striking as a result of it."
Yeah. And this idea that people just don't want to work anymore, and that's the problem. I just like, what reality are people
Right.
living in? Like, these are the people that complain about, no one wants to work in the restaurant business. It's because you don't tip. They make $2.75 an hour, and you treat them like garbage.
Yeah,
And
you give them a gospel tract
yeah,
instead of 25%. Uh,
uh,
yeah, I think the other thing is that I think there's a number of factors coming into play. I think one is people see the significant, and we're going to talk more about this in a bit, but the significant income inequality that exists in the country, and
mhm.
workers are fed up with that. They see the ridiculousness of billionaires going into space while they are working these awful factory jobs for minimum wage, and they're sick and tired of it.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that people experienced a bit of relief and respite through the course of um, the pandemic, and people having unexpected time at home, working from home, having a bit more control of their lives and seeing the quality of their lives improve in some way. And now these corporations are just asking them to go back to these horrid conditions, and people are saying no.
Mm-hmm.
um, there are things in life that are more important than just making money, and people are responding with that sense of, no, you're going to treat me fairly.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to contribute to the quality of life, or you're at least going to respect my ability to have the quality of life that I want. And I'm not indebted to you.
Yeah.
I am not your indentured servant.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a human being who deserves to be treated fairly and paid um, appropriately for my work. And we have got a really significant, it feels to me like we have got a labor crisis that is simmering and coming to a boil
Yeah.
all across the country.
Yeah, I think they're calling it the Great Resignation. How many millions of people have left their jobs throughout the pandemic, and even recently, kind of as things got back to normal. I think people, like you said, had this taste during the major lockdown where, like, maybe I don't need to like give 70 hours a week to a company that doesn't care about me. Maybe there's a different way of life where I can spend more time with my family and be more available. I think there's a big movement kind of bubbling under the surface here.
Yeah, yeah, and there's a number of factors when you fold, like there's a number of things that you fold in. We've got this labor crisis that's brewing. We've got the vaccine mandates that could impact the labor force as well. We have over 700,000 people in the country who have died of COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
That's a significant percentage of
Yeah.
workers that are no longer in the workforce. We've got companies reducing jobs and going out of business because of the pandemic and how they've responded to that.
Mm-hmm.
And all of these factors, we're at a point now where we have got some really significant economic and particularly job um, realities that are big challenges for the Biden administration, and we're probably going to shape the how the elections go over the next over the next year, and 13 months plus, as we head into a presidential election in 2024. If this is still happening, it's going to have a significant impact on politics and presidential politics in particular.
Yeah, for sure. And I think
Yeah.
even people that work for quote unquote good companies and with good benefits and good pay, there's still this like mentality that you have to be on at all times. Like if you
Yeah.
don't respond to the email that comes in at 10 o'clock, like you're on the naughty list, like this
Yeah.
idea that you don't get to check out or punch out at the end of the day. You're just always on for work. I
Yeah.
think that people are waking up to that's not any way to live. Like,
Yeah. 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 My best friend and I have had this ongoing conversation for years now about how, like, the 40-hour work week is utterly ridiculous. From our times in offices, and I'm kind of talking about office jobs here. Our time spent in office jobs, kind of seeing productivity levels. It seems to me that most 40-hour a week jobs could be done in about 24 hours or so. Like, and the rest of the time is chit chat, going to get coffee
Meetings that
and
could have been an email.
meetings that could have been an email, and on and on and on. People looking like they're working when they're actually not. It's just I think, and I think people realize that when they were working from home, they're like, shoot, I can get this done in half the time,
Yeah.
and relish that. And yeah,
And
so
not
I
spend
think
time commuting and yeah.
yeah, and there is all of these factors coming together. It doesn't feel like we're gonna go back. I think there's gonna be a reinvention that takes place, and hopefully that will be, something that happens, positively in a progressive kind of way. But often the reality is often things fall apart, and then they've got to be
Yeah.
reborn. So yeah. And, part of the angst that people are feeling is, the income inequality that we mentioned, while they're, working their tails off to get by, billionaires are going to space on joy rides, including William Shatner. Not a billionaire, but,
Billionaire adjacent.
billionaire adjacent. Jeff Bezos here, who was not the first billionaire in space, right? Didn't he get beat by Elon Musk? I honestly, I've kind of lost track of all of
What's
this.
the
All
other
these
one?
guys run together for me.
Yeah.
So I think that Jeff Bezos was not one of the first ones to go up, or was one of. I don't think he was the first one to go up. But he stole some headlines here on his I think second voyage of sending people into space by including William Shatner, Captain Kirk.
Captain Kirk.
Dan, are you a Star Trek guy?
I mean, not a huge. Yeah, I'm familiar. I've dabbled, but yeah, not a huge. Like, I don't go deep into the Trek universe.
Yeah, you're more of a Star Wars guy.
Yeah, give me wars
Yeah,
over Treks.
I'm not really either.
Well, you think you're better than me?
My favorite William Shatner thing of all time. I don't know if you've ever seen the video of him doing his vocal rendition. You can't quite call it singing. His kind of talk singing style thing that he does. If you've ever seen him doing a vocal rendition of Rocket Man,
Oh wow.
it is amazing and highly. I see our viewer numbers dropping even as I mention this, as people are headed to YouTube to look up William Shatner Rocket Man. But now he gets the opportunity. Dan? How does this strike you? Is this just a ridiculous publicity stunt, or is this like a sweet kind of feel good story, or is it evidence of just so much wasted money, or is it all of the above?
It's probably a little bit of all of that. On one hand, I love outer space. I love that we're trying to get back to outer space and move forward and, go to Mars, etc. And these are baby steps to get there. But when it becomes like a billionaire like contest, it just starts to feel pretty gross. Like, this is something NASA should be doing, and we should pay for it because we want to explore our universe, and we can, but we're just leaving it up to billionaires who apparently don't have the money to pay their workers a living wage, but have the money to go to space with William Shatner.
Yeah. Speaking of things that make you go, yeah, and make you kind of roll your eyes a little bit, big news in the football world this week when Coach John Gruden resigned as coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. Proud of me that I didn't say Oakland. Proud of me that I didn't say Los Angeles.
Both of those, yeah.
When I was a kid, I had these little felt pennants of all of the AFC, the American Football Conference, teams. I didn't have the NFC for some reason. And two things I remember distinctly about them. One was, I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, big Cleveland Browns fan. Uh, the Steelers one, the Pittsburgh Steelers one, who are the Browns' arch rivals, has in 5-year-old handwriting scrawled, it's real faint now, all these years later, 40 some years later, but scrawled across the end of the pennant, it says, "I hate them."
Awesome.
Which, I'm proud of my 5-year-old self for writing that. But the other thing I remember is that the Raiders one didn't have a city on it. It just said Raiders. And that was, I even remember as a kid thinking, oh, that's pretty smart because we don't know what city they're going to be in because they move around all the time. So they're now in Las Vegas. The Raiders are coachless at this point because John Gruden is out as coach when it comes to light that he sent to the then president of the Washington football team, Bruce Allen, the team then known by a racist moniker. John Gruden sent Bruce Allen a number of emails. In them, he used racist tropes, used a number of homophobic and misogynistic terms, and as a result of this private communication being made public through a court deposition that was taking place because of a toxic work environment with the Washington football team. Surprise, surprise, the team with the racist moniker would have a toxic work environment, and would have a president who, this white guy feels comfortable saying racist things to. All this kind of fits together, right? Mm-hmm. It's almost like Colin Kaepernick told us that, we've got a racism problem.
We've got a problem.
Yeah. and John Gruden resigns. And in the midst of his resignation and in the aftermath of it says, "I don't have an ounce of racism in me."
Straight out of the racist handbook for apologies. There's not a racist bone in my body. I feel like that's the go-to. He changed it up with an ounce of racism.
Yeah. Didn't Donald Trump used to say, "I'm the least racist person you'd ever meet"? Yeah. Many people say.
Many people will say I'm the least racist.
Okay, a couple of things here. I have never been a fan of John Gruden. Something about the cut of his jib. I don't know. He's always annoyed me, and as someone who follows football pretty closely, he's someone I don't know, the shtick, the whole thing. So not sad to see him go. Really glad that there's some consequences for this bad behavior, and deeply troubled that this kind of stuff is just so freely acceptable amongst some people.
Yeah.
The fact that some people have given themselves permission to speak and to think and to feel with such animosity towards other human beings, it's like we all know that exists, but then when you see it and you go, oh, Bruce Allen, John Gruden, reprehensible. Bruce Allen, the guy who got the emails, hey, Bruce, why does John think he can say these things to you?
Yeah.
What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you, the president of a team with a racist moniker? That might be the answer. I don't know.
It's not just these guys aren't just anybody's. They're people in power. They wield incredible power, and they have tons of employees under them. And if this is what they say in private, you can assume that it affects how they treat people in real life too.
Yeah.
So it's no surprise that there was investigations of toxic workplace environments. Like, yeah, that tracks.
Goodness. So the other thing that makes me a little bit happy about this is that John Gruden was on a 10-year contract as head coach of the Raiders, and underperforming and way overpaid at 10 years, $100 million, the highest paid coach in the league, and really overrated and overpaid, and because he had to resign, that means that the Raiders don't have to pay out his contract. Now, I'm sure that there will be lawyers involved and there'll be some kind of settlement. But if he had been fired, they would have had to pay out his contract unless they fired him with cause.
Which it seems like that would be enough cause.
Yeah, but this was stuff that happened before he was coach of the Raiders. I don't know. But his resignation means that the Raiders are off the hook on a contract. I think he was in year 3 or 4 of a 10-year contract, paying him $100 million, and they're off the hook for that. And I think ultimately that's a really good thing for the Raiders, because those kinds of contracts can really hamstring you, especially at the end.
Well, I'm sure he's not going to walk away penniless.
Yeah,
are not set up that way.
Do you think he makes a comeback in some ways, or have we seen the last of John Gruden?
I don't know. Yeah, I'd like to think things are changing to where, like, you don't just get another multi-million-dollar gig after this, but we'll see.
Yeah.
My expectations for humanity in general are fairly low, so.
Yeah. And that's because you've been paying attention to Joe Manchin?
Oh, this guy. I do
talk
feel like
about Joe Manchin.
We need a whole podcast for This Guy's Got to Go, just about Joe Manchin.
So Joe Manchin continues to be the one-man obstruction of the Biden agenda. So there's 2 bills that are stuck in Congress right now, and are key parts of the Biden agenda and his ability to deliver on promises that he made during the campaign and to do what is needed for the good of the country. One of those bills is an infrastructure bill. And then the other bill is the Build Back Better agenda. And, we will once again set aside our discussion of how awful Build Back Better is as a slogan. And
it's a great alliteration, though.
I could do a whole podcast on Build Back Better. But the Build Back Better agenda, and there's the spending bill, and Joe Manchin is dug in his heels. So basically what has happened is progressives in Congress have said, listen, we need both of these bills, and we're afraid that if we pass the infrastructure bill, that this other one will never get passed. So we want to pass both of them together to ensure that they both happen, which is a strategy that they have been upfront and forthright about from the very beginning, said these things need to be together. Joe Manchin has dug in his heels and said, no, he caused the infrastructure bill to be significantly gutted and force some kind of, bipartisan compromise far beyond what was wanted by Democrats in Congress. And so much of it now, it seems like, is now gutting much of the climate protections that were a part of that as well, because Joe Manchin started a coal company. His daughter has been, CEO of a coal company, and it's just, it's icky, right? It's icky. And it's everything that is just like, that we hate about politics. Mm-hmm. And so he has scuttled the ability of Democrats to get these bills passed, which would give the president much needed wins politically. And more than that, would provide, jobs for people in the midst of this employment crisis that we're talking about. It would provide relief in so many ways for people when we desperately need it. And it's not happening because Joe Manchin's like, nah, I don't know. I don't want to.
And he's also, correct me if I'm wrong, against like certain parts of the child tax credit situation.
Yep.
Like he wants a work requirement and a cap, and it's like, really, that's what you're upset about too? You're going to hold up all this because you want to give families less?
Yep.
Like, I just...
Listen, all of this is instructive, I think, for folks. There is, listen, and I am no apologist for Republicans, and I don't think that the Republican Party right now is to be trusted in any way. At the same time, I think we've got to be really careful and much more nuanced and a bit more kind of critical and perceptive than just going with like, hey, blue no matter who. Because sometimes blue no matter who gets us people like Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema.
Mm-hmm.
And there was Joe Manchin in his last election had a primary challenger, a person I know well named Paula Jean Swearingen, who if you've watched the Netflix documentary Knock Down the House, Paula is a key part of that. And I know Paula personally, and if Paula were the senator from West Virginia, we would not be having these issues. But hey, blue no matter who, right?
Yeah.
So listen, I say this to say we've got to be much more vigilant about the types of people we send to Washington, D.C. These people that have their loyalty, so many of these folks, and listen, it's not everybody, but so many of these folks, their loyalty is not with the voters who send them to D.C. Their loyalty lies with the donors who fund their campaigns.
Yeah.
And you've got to know who is funding the campaigns of the people that you're voting for, and recognize that the danger in these huge corporations and these huge industries backing people that are going to vote the way that they want them to vote, and that over and over and over again, regardless of the letter after your name, ends up putting like the best interests of these big corporations ahead of the needs of people. And it's a recipe for disaster. And we're seeing that play out right now with Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema. And listen, this is not the type of thing where you throw your hands up and go, oh, there's nothing we can do about it. No, there is something you can do about it. We, the people, have the power to stop this. You go, oh, well, we need campaign finance reform. Yeah, we do. But if we all voted differently, we could change this. We don't have to wait on anybody to change a law for us to change the lawmakers. We have the power to do that if we, the people, had this collective commitment that if you're taking corporate PAC money and your loyalty is with big corporations rather than people, like that's political suicide. It used to be like admitting that you smoked marijuana was political suicide. If we made if there was enough of a commitment across the country that we're simply not going to vote for these people, and we could change how this happens. So I'm ranting and moving into political speech here, like a campaign speech. But this is so infuriating to me, and it's so frustrating seeing not just from a political perspective, the president being stymied by this guy, but like having a real difference made in people's lives is being stopped because Joe Manchin doesn't feel like it. It's just so annoying.
And what's scary is if in the midterms Democrats lose a seat or two, then you're really not getting anything done.
Yeah.
And so this idea that he wants to like play both sides somehow and be like a compromiser, like you're not going to get anything done. And then you're guaranteed 2 years of definitely not getting anything done. So like, what is your job? Just to obstruct anything that's trying to make the country better? What'd you get into this job for? I don't know.
Yeah, very good questions, and I think all of us are feeling the frustration about Joe Manchin. Dan, are we ending on such a downer of a note?
Well, I'm looking through. I don't have any more happy stories.
We don't have any feel good stories. We're not like.
Well, here's one real short, and it's kind of feel good and kind of annoying because of how people responded. But Mayor Pete has been in the news, Secretary Pete now, because he took some family leave, which is part of his, contract, because he and his partner adopted twins and they wanted to spend time with their new babies. And Fox News has just been making hay over this. Like, how dare he take time with his family when he should be working, whatever. Did you catch any of this? Like, Tucker Carlson just...
talk about people we should shoot into space. Tucker Carlson. Yeah, listen, this is, the party of family values, are just shown to be hypocrites again. They're simply like, they're trying to reinforce their toxic masculinity and their patriarchy by belittling a gay couple and trying to make them look less masculine and manly. And, it's totally backfiring because anybody who's ever been a parent knows like how difficult it is to have a newborn, let alone two.
Yeah.
And and of course you want to take time at home. All of us would want to take time at home with our newborns if we could. And, this whole thing about paternity leave, absolutely, like, yes.
Yeah.
And Tucker Carlson and Fox News just make themselves look silly once again.
Yeah. And it all gets tied back into like why there's a labor shortage, why people are going on strike, because there's a whole segment of people in power that think, no, you shouldn't get to be with your family. That's a luxury that we're not paying you for.
That's right.
And people are saying, no, like this life's too short not to be a good dad,
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Life is too short not to be a good dad. That's a good reminder. My kids that are in school have today off. It's a teacher in service day, so I'm gonna be spending some time with my kids today and enjoying doing that. And hopefully, wherever you are and whatever you've got going on today, it's an opportunity for you to bring some common good into the world that so desperately needs it.
Yeah.
After the rundown of these stories, right? It's really on us to bring some good into this world. So let's do that. Dan, great chatting with you. Encourage everybody to tune in tomorrow evening as we get a update from the We the People ride. And you can hear about how all of that is going. And then on Wednesday, the Faith team will be here to talk with you. Dan, great to see you today. Encourage everybody to have a great day and to do some good out there.
Yep. We'll see y'all.